In this video, I will share how I got my senior product design job. I will share my lessons, tips, and new strategy I learned this time to help you stand out as well in such a competitive job market. If you are new to my channel, my name is Minjin. I am the senior product designer with 8 years experience in building enterprise and consumer products. Previously, I worked at Spotify, Microsoft, and Amazon. Let's start with my timelines. So I got laid off by Spotify on December 2023, and I took 3 months breaks because it was the holiday seasons. I really need some time to reset and relax and enjoy the quality time with my family and friends. Until this year, March 2024, I officially start looking for my new job. I was working on preparing for my application materials, which includes resumes, online portfolio, presentation decks, and I also start applying for the job using the resume I did. Moving to April, I did a lot of different interview with different company. All these job interview I did at this time was either the early stage to the mid stage, like the recruiter call or hiring manager conversation. Until May, I finally got the on-site interview. In total, I did 6 on-site interviews and finally got 2 offers. And I signed the offer by the end of May. Starting from June 2024, I start my new job at my current company. Let's bring a little bit more like data point of all these job interview I did. So through the 2.5 months of the job searching process, I applied for 127 companies in total, which also includes the 3 referrals I got from my friends. Then I go into 34 first round of the interview process, which means I talked to almost like 34 companies in the past 2 months, and I got 6 final on-site interviews and 2 offers by the end. Let's talk about my application materials. So like I mentioned earlier, I spent the majority of my time on March working on my application materials. And at the first week of March, my goal was to finish and finalize my resume and online portfolios. So I update my resumes with my recent job experience at Spotify, and I also update my online portfolio by adding my recent project from Spotify. It's only took a week for me to complete because I really want to complete these 2 things as soon as possible so that I can start applying for the job. One of the mistakes I learned from my past experience was about early on, I used to spend at least 1 to 2 months just working on my online portfolio. After 2 months, I already feel so exhausting and overwhelming by so many changes and updates I did for my online portfolio. I feel like I almost lost my energy to do the job searching and interview. So this time I changing my strategy because I know that portfolio preparation decks is way more important than the online portfolio itself. After you get into the actual interviews, no one else will looking at your online portfolio. You have to talk, speak, and showcase your work through your portfolio presentation decks. Starting from my second week of March, my priority was about start building the very, very first drive of my portfolio presentation decks. I know myself, it was extremely difficult for me to kick off this process. And I know how important it is. So I really push myself a little bit on March to start working on it so I can continue iterate, update my portfolio presentation decks based on the feedbacks I gather from my mentors and from these actual interviews. And also a good portfolio presentation really take a lot of times, iteration. I end up with spending the most of my time on March, just building up my portfolio presentation slides. And I also continue to update my portfolio presentation slides during the interview process. Here are the 3 tips I want to share with you about how to better prepare for these application materials. Tips number 1. Once you have complete 80% of your resume and online portfolio, you are ready to start applying for a job. Because you can always going back to iterate and update your online portfolio and resumes based on the feedback or response you got. Remember that there are no 100% perfect design for resume and online portfolios. We will never feel like we are ready to apply for this job if we set our expectation to, I want to make it 100% perfect. Just get it done and start applying for the job. My second tips is about create your own Calendly link to easily schedule the interview with recruiter when needed. While most of the recruiter today will send out the email with the links to schedule the interview. However, in some scenarios, you reach out to the recruiter through LinkedIn to express your interest in these positions, and you might get a response from this recruiter or hiring manager to potentially schedule a call, sending out our Calendly links so that they can easily find a time on that calendar and schedule the session with us. I use this tool a lot during my interview, which made this communication process way more smooth and easier. Tip number 3, always keep your audience, recruiter, and hiring manager in mind. This is a very critical mindset we need to carry on once we become a job seeker. No matter you are working on the resumes, portfolio, or presentation slides, always ask yourself, if I was in the hiring manager's shoes, how would I approach my portfolio and resume? How would I do it different? When I start building my very first portfolio, I pull every of my project I did at the school because I want to showcase every project on my portfolio to the recruiter and hiring managers. Therefore, I end up with showcasing 8 projects in total on the homepage of my online portfolio. However, when I start to looking at the data analytics of my online portfolio website, I find that the majority of the people only clicked on the very first of my projects. Suddenly, I realized that I need to switch my approach. I need to think about who is the audience I'm designing for, how I can make it easy for them to understand who I am as a designer and what kind of projects I'm working on using my online portfolio in an easy and straightforward way. If I were thinking from the hiring manager perspective, I won't make my portfolio with so many overwhelming number of the projects. As the hiring managers, I barely have the time to read every case study from the hundreds of the portfolio, and I just want to get a quick glance of what type of projects these candidates have been working on. Based on these kind of mindsets, I would only pick up 3 to 4 best qualities, best representation of my works. Let's talk about the actual interviews. Like I mentioned earlier, I got 34 at first round of the interview with a variety of the company, from the early stage startup to a large technology companies. Although the interview process between different companies varies, the typical interview process for UX and product design roles includes recruiter call, hiring manager conversations, and the on-site interview, which includes the portfolio presentations, whiteboard design challenge, and a few of the one-on-one with the teammate. This time, I approach all these interview with a greater sense of peace and reflections. As I spoke with different companies, I constantly reflecting on myself about what I'm looking for in my next roles, what opportunity could better align with my career goals and career progression. For example, I spoke to a startup company that was building the product at the intersection between machine learning, AIs, and data. I knew myself wasn't very interested in this particular space, but I feel like there's no harm for me to have this initial conversation with the recruiter because I was still early at my interview phase. So I picked up the phone with the recruiter, and actually the conversation was very great. However, the recruiter mentioned that they were actually hiring their first founding designers. But looking at my experience, I don't see myself had the capability to build everything from scratch as a founding designer, because I really love to work with a team of designers. So by the end of this call, I told my recruiter this position wasn't a great fit for myself because I wasn't very interested in working at this space as a founding designer. Although the job market is way more competitive at this time, we have the opportunity to really think about and choose the right career opportunity for ourselves, because no one cares about your careers. It is you to take the responsibility for your career, for your growth. I want to share my 3 new strategies I incorporate to my job searching this time to help myself better prepare for all these job interview sessions. Tips number 1, create your own career audit document to help yourself reflect, recall, and write down detail for the projects. If I don't do this career audit exercise, it's really hard for me to remember everything and the crucial detail for the projects I have been working on in the past 8 years. It also helped myself to build up my confidence because I do my homework in advance before I go into interview session. I was able to craft my answers for these behavioral questions. So how can you create your own career audit documents? Here is my 3 steps. Step 1 is to identify 3 to 5 large, complicated projects where you lead the end-to-end design process. Step 3 is to write down the detail as much as you can for each of the projects. The detail include your roles, project context, business goal, the problems, people involved, success metrics, and why this project was so complicated and so challenging, project constraints, conflicts, mistakes, as well as your contribution to these projects and your contribution to the teams. And by the end, don't forget to talk about the impacts and outcomes, such as how the conversion or retention rate increased 5%. Step 3, synthesize the story that showcases your skill. After you write down everything you did in these docs, it's the time for us to figure out, identify, and synthesize the right story that showcase our product design skill set, from the design craft, research skill, to communication, collaborations, and influence as a designer. Tip number 2, create your own interview question banks. Starting with documenting the most common interview questions, such as how did you get into product design? What is your design process? How do you collaborate with cross-functional teams, such as product manager, engineers? And how did you resolve the conflicts or disagreements with your teammate? You can check out my video here from my channels where I share the most common and critical interview questions. When you start interview, you can continue to expand and add more questions you encounter during your own interview sessions. Especially, you need to document the most difficult question you couldn't have a great answer for it during the actual interview session. So document all these difficult questions, question banks, so that you can think about how I can better craft the answer for it. Maybe next time you might have the similar questions. You can handle it with confidence because you did. I always prepare a pen and the notebooks so that I can write down some keywords for the questions I encounter during the interview session. After my session, I will quickly digitalize my notes and add all these kind of questions into my personal interview question banks. Once you build up your interview question banks, you can keep it forever and use it whenever you need it. So it's very convenient. Tip number 3 is showcase your superpower and the unique values you are able to bring to the teams. Our career narratives unfold in various formats during our interview process. Every stage of the interview process, we got the opportunity to highlight and reinforce the value and strengths we can bring into the team. Don't shy away from talking about the tangible outcome and result of the projects, and also you influence on the team beyond just pushing the pixel. Remember that our ability to articulate our value and strengths is something that helps set us apart from other candidates. After I went through this career auditing exercise, I have a better understanding of myself as a designer. There are always things throughout different projects I have been working on at Spotify, Microsoft, or Amazon. It's about building the wonderful tool for wonderful people who are doing this critical job, no matter I design a tool for warehouse people or I designing the data analytic dashboard for advertiser. So this actually become my designer statements, and I am able to speak these statements confidently and share my value throughout every conversation I had during my interview. All these kind of projects I pick up and showcase during my portfolio presentations reinforce these statements, reinforce this concept of building the wonderful tool for wonderful people. If you stay until this portion of the video, thank you. I want to share one more bonus point. If you are looking for a senior or even principal designer role, take some time to think about, reflect, and generate your design approach. Because for senior or even higher designer role, it's very important for us to talk about our frameworks, our approach to navigate all these ambiguous problem space. Job hunting is definitely not an easy process. I'm so grateful that I was able to land my dream job after the 3 months of the hard workings. I'm also grateful for all these support, encouragements I received from my family, from my mentor, from my friends. Comment below if any questions about UX or product design interview. Don't forget to like this video. Please subscribe, share my channel with more designer friends. See you next time.